So you're a Python developer and you're thinking about building for the web. You've probably heard the name Flask thrown around. It's one of the most popular web frameworks out there, and for good reason. But what is it, really? And why might it be the perfect choice for your next big idea? Well, let's dive in and find out.
You know, the craziest thing about Flask is where it came from. Believe it or not, it started out as an April Fool's joke. The creator, Armin Ronacher, just bundled a couple of existing tools together and announced it as this brand new thing. But the joke was on him, because the community's reaction was so positive, he realized, whoa, I'm actually onto something here. And that origin story, it perfectly sums up the whole spirit of Flask. Simple, a little bit cheeky, and way more powerful than it looks. At its core, Flask is what we call a micro-framework. Now don't let that word micro fool you. It doesn't mean weak or small scale. It means minimalistic. Think of it this way. Flask gives you the absolute essentials, a solid engine for handling web requests and routing URLs, and then it just gets out of your way. Unlike huge, monolithic frameworks that try to give you everything but the kitchen sink, Flask lets you decide what tools you need and when to add them.
So why do so many developers just love Flask? Well, it's how all these strengths play together. Because it's so lightweight, it's incredibly flexible. You're not locked into one specific way of structuring your project. That flexibility makes it way easier to learn, right? You can get started fast. And because it's so unopinionated, it's also massively scalable. You can start with a tiny one-page app and grow it into a huge, complex platform. It all comes down to one thing: control. Flask puts you in the driver's seat.
Okay, talk is cheap. The best way to really get the Flask philosophy is to see it. So let's look at the classic Hello World app. You're probably going to be shocked by how little code it takes to get a real web server running on your machine.
And that's it. Seriously, take a look. This right here is a complete, fully functional web application. The core idea is just so clean. You import Flask, you create your app, you tell it what to do when someone visits a URL, and you hit run. That's it. This right here is why people find Flask so refreshing and so powerful to work with. Let's just quickly walk through this. First, you import the main Flask class and create your app. Easy enough. Next is that line with the @ symbol. That's a decorator, and it's like a signpost. It tells Flask, hey, when a web browser asks for the main page, the single slash, I want you to run the function right below this line. That function is called a view, and all it does is return the string hello world. And finally, that last bit just tells the server to start up. Simple, right?
All right, hello world is a great party trick, but real web apps need to handle lots of different pages and show different content. This is where Flask's routing system really starts to show its muscle, letting us go from simple, static pages to truly dynamic experiences.
So you've got two main kinds of routes. A static route is exactly what it sounds like. The URL /hello is hard-coded. It will always run that same function and return that same message. But here's where the magic happens. Dynamic routes. See those angle brackets around username? That turns part of the URL into a variable. Whatever you type after /user gets passed right into your Python function. So if you visit /user Alice, the app can say, hello Alice. It's a beautifully simple way to create personalized content. And Flask is smart about this too. It can get even more specific. You can add these little converters inside the brackets to tell Flask what kind of data to expect. For example, you can say you're only expecting an integer for a blog post ID. If a user tries to go to post/some text, Flask will know that's not right and automatically send back an error. It's a really clean way to validate your URLs right from the get-go. Of course, modern web apps are a lot more than just plain text flying back and forth. We need to build real HTML pages, and we need to work with data, probably from a database. Let's see how Flask makes both of these next steps surprisingly straightforward. To handle the HTML side of things, Flask comes with a super powerful tool called the Jinja 2 template engine. Think of it like HTML on steroids. It lets you write normal HTML files, but you can also embed little bits of code in them, variables, loops, you name it, using a really simple syntax. Now to keep things nice and tidy, Flask has a simple convention. It automatically looks for all your HTML files in a folder named, you guessed it, templates. As long as you create that folder in your project right next to your main app file, Flask knows exactly where to find your web pages.
So how does the Python code actually talk to the HTML file? It's brilliant. In your Python code, instead of returning a simple string, you use a special function called renderTemplate. You tell it which HTML file to use, and then you can pass in any data you want, like a title variable here. Then over in your HTML file, you just use those double curly braces as a placeholder. When the page loads, Jinja2 swaps double curly braces title with the value you sent from Python. It's an incredibly clean way to build dynamic pages.
Okay, what about data? For databases, the go-to tool in the Flask world is an extension called Flask SQAlchemy. It brings in a powerful library called an Object Relational Mapper, or ORM. Now, an ORM is a total game changer. It lets you interact with your database using plain old Python objects and classes, instead of having to write raw and often messy SQL code.
And Flask SQAlchemy is just one example of Flask's massive ecosystem. This is where that Lego brick philosophy really comes alive. Need to build secure web forms? Snap on Flask WTF. Need a REST API? Grab Flask RESTful. Need to handle user logins? There's Flask Login for that. You just pick and choose the exact pieces you need for your project, keeping your app clean, lean, and perfectly tailored to the job.
So you've built your amazing app. It works perfectly on your computer. Now it's time for the world to see it. But taking a Flask app live involves one more crucial step that catches a lot of beginners by surprise.
You know, when you've been running your app locally, you've been using Flask's built-in development server. It's fantastic for coding, it reloads automatically when you save your files, it's super convenient, but if you look closely at the messages it prints in your terminal, you'll see Flask itself gives you a very clear heads up.
And there it is, plain as day. Warning, this is a development server. Do not use it in a production deployment. This is so important. The handy server you use while you're coding is absolutely not the one you should use to serve your app to real users. It's not built to handle traffic, and it's not designed to be secure.
So what do you use? For a live website, you need a proper, production-ready WSGI server. WSGI is just the standard way that Python web apps talk to web servers. You've got great options like Junicorn, which is super popular on Linux systems, or Waitress, which works everywhere. These are the heavy-duty tools that are built for performance, stability, and security.
It's always useful to see how Flask stacks up against its main rival, Django. And this comparison really says it all. Flask gives you maximum flexibility and has a really gentle learning curve, precisely because it starts so minimal. Django, on the other hand, is what they call batteries included. It comes with tons of stuff built in, which can be great, but it also means it's more rigid and forces you to work in a very specific way. And that brings us back to the core idea. Flask doesn't make assumptions. It gives you this clean, simple, rock-solid foundation, and then it trusts you, the developer, to pick the right tools for the job. It's a framework designed for builders who want freedom and control.
And that freedom is what makes Flask so powerful and exciting. From a tiny personal blog to a massive e-commerce site or a complex API, Flask provides the canvas. So the only question left is, what are you going to create?